Hello friends, welcome back. We are studying jQuery data tables, and this video is about how to integrate ASP.NET MVC with jQuery data tables. In previous video we saw introduction to jQuery data tables, and there we studied how to bind jQuery data tables with HTML data source. So that is nothing but a client-side processing. But this video will cover server-side processing. We are going to do a simple coding. Initially, we will bind with simple C#.NET collection, and then after we will bind it to the database data. Okay. So if you're not familiar with the introductory part, my suggestion is to watch that video first. So let's get started. So the first step required here is that you have to add the necessary JS and CSS file. So I already explained what are the JS and CSS file in previous video. The next step is that you have to add a data table markup. So since we are doing server-side processing here, so we have to add the table tag, thead tag, that's it. Tbody tag will going to generate dynamically. Okay. Then we have to give call to the data tables function. This is also explained in the previous video. Again, definitely I'm going to explain here. I'm just going to list out the steps. Next step is that for server-side processing, we have to set some data tables option. So first of all, we will have a look on this data table option, and then we will do this practically. So these are the few data table options that we are going to study. Okay, and definitely these are very initial data tables options. Okay, as we move forward, we are going to see few more data table options, and definitely step by step. Okay, so the first option is processing, which can be set to true or false. So this option will show you the processing message, okay, while your client is contacting to the server. So data table server-side processing is purely based on Ajax. Okay. So whenever you send any asynchronous request, okay, users should understand that something is happening in background. So for that purpose, we are showing this processing message. Okay. We are going to see this practically, so it will be more clear to you. The next option is server side. So this should be set to true. Okay, because we are studying server side processing, right? Next is filter. So filter is basically for that search box, whether you want to show that search box or not. If it's set to true, the search box will appear. If you set it to false, search box will not appear. Then next is Ajax option, where you specify the URL that you want to call from server side. Okay, again we are going to see this part practically. The next one is column depths, where you can specify the column related options. Very specific, I'll say we can specify the width of the column. We can mention whether this column can be used in sort order or not. So these things are mentioned in this column depths option. Next is columns option, where particularly you specify the data binding part. Okay, we are actually studying server-side processing in jQuery data table. So whatever data came from server side, okay, we need to bind it to the column. Okay, so what name I mentioned for that particular column in server side, I have to specify it in data table options. Okay, so for that purpose we use columns options. Then whether you want to provide pagination facility or not, in that case you will specify this paging option accordingly, means it can be true or false. For responsive data table, you can set it to true, otherwise you can go for false. So if you set it to true, then you can say it is mobile first design, or related to bootstrap. Okay, those who are familiar with bootstrap definitely understand this. So basically responsive design means what? It adjusts according to the various devices like laptop, mobile devices, tablet, or anything. Okay, we will see the implementation of this part practically. So let us move to Visual Studio. So as you can see here, we have already an application named as Learn jQuery Data Table. Okay. In introductory video, I have created this application. Okay. At that time, I used home controller. Now I have created a course controller. Now the course controller is empty. We are going to do a coding over here. But here I declare one model having these three fields: course ID, course name, and duration. Okay. Now here we are going to write a method that will give me a collection of course. Basically, I'll create one list or one enumerable collection having that data, and we are going to bind that collection with HTML table, and then after we are going to enhance it through jQuery data table. So let us write that method: private enumerable course is nothing but our model, and my method name is get courses. Okay, it can be any name of your choice. Now it is giving me an error, so basically I have to import that model namespace. That's it. Okay, so this namespace get used here. Now let me create a list of course. So let us name it as LST courses is equal to new list. I'm going to use the concept of collection initializer. So new course ID is equal to 1, then course name is equal to say C programming, then duration is equal to say 2 months. Okay, similarly what will I do? I'll add few more courses here. So as you are seeing here, I have added 12 courses. Okay, so let us return it. So return LST courses. Okay, that's it. So we have a collection of courses. Now we initialize these courses. Basically this data came from database also, but again to avoid the complexity, I just initialize my collection. In the next video we'll see how to fetch it from the database also. Now the next important thing is that we have to add the references of jQuery file and CSS file. Okay, so if you remember in last video, okay, we already added a reference of CSS file in layout file. Okay, we already added reference of CSS file in layout file. So layout file is a kind of master file. So if you added it here, it get available to all the views, okay, which are child of this layout view. So I have already added a view for this index action method. So let us go to there. Now here what I have to do, I have to add a reference of my jQuery file for the data table. Again you can create a section here, or again you can add it in the layout file. It is also okay. Okay, if you required it on all the views, in that case you can add it into the layout view, but if it is required for particular view only, in that case you can add it here. So I'll go with the section of approach. If you remember in the previous video, we have already created the section. Okay, so just let me add this particular part. I'm copying it, I'm just moving it here. That's it. Okay, basically this code get changed. Okay, again in layout file we already rendered this section. See, we already rendered this section. Okay, so whenever my view get displayed, my course index view get displayed. At that time, this section get rendered in the layout file exactly below the reference of my main jQuery file. Okay. Now, the next step is that we have to add HTML markup. So let us add it. As I told you, we have to add only table tag, okay, and t-head tag. That's it. So this is my required markup on my view. Okay, you are not going to add table body. So let us change this heading. So we are going to display a course details. So I'll say course details. Okay, and this is my table heading. ID is very important. Okay, now the next step is we have to specify the data table options. So let us define it. So for rendering or for enhancing the plain HTML table, we need to give call to the simple data table function only. But for doing the server-side processing, we have to specify multiple options that I already explained you. Here we are going to specify it. So my first option is processing. Okay. I want to show that loading option or processing option. So I'll say true here. Sorry, true. Then next is server side option. I'll say server side. Server side is also true. Then my next option is say filter. I do not want filter option just for time being because we didn't implement it searching functionality at server side. We are just displaying the collection, so that's why I set this property to false. Okay, then next option is paging. Again, we didn't implement the paging part, so again I'll keep this option false. Then next is responsive. I'll set it to true. So my table design is responsive. Okay. Now the next option is Ajax. For Ajax, again you have to specify the value in the form of key value pair. Okay. So the first thing that you have to specify is the server side method or server side action method that you want to execute. The first thing is URL, which is nothing but the action method that you want to execute, and in MVC we can specify it in this way @URL dot action, and here you have to specify the action method name. So say my action method name is load data. It can be any name. Okay. Okay. The next method is data type. Again, it should be in the double quote or single quote. So data type means in what format you are sending the data to the server and in what format you are getting the data from the server. So it is JSON. I'm using JSON here. So JSON or HTML, you can use anything, but here we have to use JSON only. Then you have to specify the method type, which method you are going to use. Get method or post method. So we are passing our data through post method. So I'll specify the post here. Okay. So we define this Ajax part also. Now the next part is column depths. Okay. So again, column depths. As I told you, here we can specify the parts like ordering or width, etc., etc. Okay. We have three columns in our collection. Okay. So this will be defined in the form of array. Just so place open close square bracket, and this open close square bracket again you will specify each and every column related data in the curly braces. So the first thing is that, say I want to specify the width. Okay, it will be in the form of percentage, so every time it will be adjustable. So say 20%, my first column width is 20%. Then next thing you have to specify is targets, which is nothing but which column you are going to target. So here its ordering starts with 0, 1, 2, means first column starts with 0. So remember this thing, we have to start with 0. So here I'll say 0. Then next is orderable. Whether you want to keep that column orderable or not. Again, we didn't implemented ordering functionality at server side. We are just displaying the plain collection. So I'm going to set this value false. In the same way, I have to specify rest of the two columns. So I'm just copying it, paste, paste. So I have to change the width here, say 40. My next two columns will be of size 40, 40. Here targets will be 1. Here it will be 2. Remember this thing. Okay. Now we completed with column depths option. Next option is columns. So here also we have multiple columns, so we have to specify it in the form of array, that is in square bracket. And as I told you, here this mainly mentions the data binding part. So again it will be in the curly braces. So first of all we will specify the data. Here we have to specify actual our property name. What is it? Course ID. Okay, again I am copying it and pasting it over here, and then you have to specify the name. Name can be anything. This is the name referred in client side part, so I'll just name it as CID. In the same way, what will I do? I'll just copy this part and I'll specify it for rest of the two columns. So this is my course name. This spelling should match, otherwise your data will not get populated. So I'll say C name. Then we have duration. Say C duration. Okay, so that's it. We have done with this view related part. Okay, we mentioned these options. Later on you can pause the video and watch this option carefully. Okay, so everything is defined in a curly braces. And the most important thing that we are going to do here next, as a next step, is we have to define this load data method. Okay, what data type it is required? It required JSON. So we have to define one load data action method which is going to return a JSON result, and it is HTTP post method. So we have to define it in a course controller. See here, if your method appears in a different controller, you have to specify the name of the controller. Okay, but since this view also belongs to course controller and method also belongs to course controller, it is not necessary to specify the controller name. But if it appears in different controllers, in that case you have to specify the controller name also. So here I am not going to mention it. So let us move to controller part, and here below this I am going to create one action method named as load data. So public, so it will return JSON result. As we mentioned there, we expected a JSON type of data. Say load data. Okay, again we specify the method type as post. So let me mark it as HTTP post, because by default all the methods in all the action methods in MVC are what? Get method. Okay, so we already have this collection populated in one method. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to collect this. I'm going to call this method, and whatever collection returned by this method, I'm going to collect it. So let me declare it I enumerable course, say courses. It can be again any name. Just give call to this get courses method, which is a private method here. That's it. We have a data. Again, we are not implementing paging functionality, searching functionality, ordering functionality here. We are just going to display it. So only this code is sufficient. So next, so return JSON, okay, and then you have to say new. Actually, we have to create one anonymous class, and then here you have to specify one name. It should be data only, then only your jQuery data table script will understand. So to this data attribute, you have to specify your actual data, which is nothing but what? Courses. So data is equal to courses, means where is your actual data stored. So that actual data source you have to assign to this data property or data attribute. Then next property you have to mention is records filtered. So records filter is nothing but the total number of count. See, this property is basically required when you are working with searching functionality. Okay, but just to appear that message properly, we are setting this property. What will I do? I'll just remove this property and then show you how will be the output. Okay, and then we will add it again. Okay, time being, just let it be here. After running, I'll remove it and then show you the output. Then next is records total. So it is again equal to total number of records. That's it. We're done with the server side part also. So everything is done. Just remember one thing, whenever you are returning the JSON data, this spellings and this properties should match. This should be data only. This should be records filtered only. This should be record total only. Okay. Again, I'll repeat, we are not implementing any searching, sorting, or pagination functionality. So that's why this code is simple. Okay. From the next video onwards, we are going to add that complexity step by step. Okay. Now, let us check this part. Okay. So I'm executing this. So see, our data get loaded in data table. Okay. Since we kept that filtered option false, pagination option false, that's why we are not able to see it. But once we turn it on, definitely you can see it. So see, here you can see the message showing 1 to 12 of 12 entries. Okay. Here you can see that ordering option, but it is not working here because we kept orderable option to false and we didn't implement the ordering functionality. Okay, but here from this message you can observe that we are actually displaying it with data table. See, we wrote very less code. Okay, through ajax we call that data. Even on your index view we just wrote, just let me show you. On our index view we just wrote this particular part. We didn't iterate through any collection. So this method actually get called, then after this binding happens, and accordingly everything gets showed in the data table format. Okay, again I just want to show you that here you are seeing this message, right? 1 to 12 of 12 entries. If we remove that record filter option, then what will be the message? We are going to see it. So I stopped my application. I'm just switching here and I'll remove this part. Okay, let us save it and let us again run this. And let us observe the output now. See, here your message is not meaningful. It is showing 0 to 0 of 0 entries. That's why that property is required there. Okay. So I hope you enjoy this. Okay, I try to explain it with a simple concept and with simplicity. So from next video onwards, we are going to add complexity one by one. Means first of all is we will see how to do searching, then we'll see how to do pagination, then we'll see how to do sorting and etc etc. Thank you for watching.